They say every old school has its ghost stories, and I never believed any of them. That is, until I had to work the night shift at one. For 2 years, I was a night custodian at an old high school. It was built in the 1930s. One of those big brick buildings that just feels heavy with history. Most of the job was fine. It was quiet, easy, and predictable. But there was one place in that entire building that I dreaded more than anything else. The auditorium. It was massive. 3 levels of seats arching up into the darkness. A giant stage. And those heavy, deep red curtains that always seemed to be moving, even when the air was completely still. During the day, with students and teachers bustling around, it looked normal. But at night, it felt like stepping into an entirely different world. Even with every single light switched on, the shadows in there were just wrong. They were too dark, too deep, like they were drinking the light. And the sound carried strangely in that space. If you dropped a broom, the echo wouldn't just bounce back at you. It would twist and turn and wrap around the corners until you could untell where it was even coming from. It was disorienting, and frankly, pretty creepy. Most nights, I saved the auditorium for last. I'd put it off as long as possible because I hated being in there alone. But one cold winter night, I didn't have a choice. There was a school play scheduled for the next morning, so the stage and the aisles had to be spotless. I had to clean it early. It was just after midnight when I unlocked the heavy side door. It creaked open slowly, like something out of a horror movie, and then slammed shut behind me with a crash that rolled through the entire room like thunder. My heart jumped into my throat. For a second I stood there, my hand on the doorknob, staring out at the rows and rows of empty seats. "Get it together," I muttered to myself, and started sweeping the main floor aisles. The rhythmic scrape of the broom against the floor echoed all around me, loud enough to drown out my own uneasy thoughts. It was almost comforting. But after just a few minutes, I heard something else. It was faint at first, a soft rustling sound coming from the direction of the stage. I froze, listening. Nothing moved. I told myself it was probably a prop shifting, or maybe a mouse scurrying behind the curtains. So I went back to sweeping. Then it came again. But this time it was clearer. Footsteps. Slow, heavy footsteps, walking across the wooden stage. My blood ran cold. I dropped the broom, the sound clattering loudly in the silence. I grabbed my flashlight and cautiously climbed the steps onto the stage, my hand shaking just a little. I swept the beam of light across the thick velvet curtains and the dusty props that were stacked against the back walls. There were ropes, pulleys, old painted backdrops from forgotten plays, and everything was perfectly still. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was there, that I was being watched. The air felt thick, heavy. I told myself I was just imagining it, that I was letting the spooky old building get to me. I backed off the stage and picked up my broom again. Just keep sweeping. Just focus on the job. But now, every little sound made me jump. The echo of my own sweeping. The sound of my own footsteps on the concrete. The frantic thump, thump, thump of my own heartbeat. And then, I saw it. Up on the second tier of seats, a shadow moved. It was quick, subtle, just a flicker in my peripheral vision. It was gone before I could even properly focus on it. I whipped the flashlight beam up toward the balcony. Nothing, just rows of empty, silent chairs. I tried to rationalize it. It was just the lighting, the way the shadows play tricks on you in a place like this. It was just my nerves getting the better of me. But then, the whisper came. It was low, soft, and it was coming from the balcony right above me. I couldn't make out the words, but it was a distinct voice, and it felt like it was moving. Getting closer, my heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Hello," I called out, and I hated how much my voice was shaking. The echo of my own question came back at me, hollow and empty. There was no answer. I gripped the handle of my mop like it was a weapon and tried to keep cleaning, but my hands wouldn't stop trembling. My eyes kept darting up to the dark, empty balcony. When I finally had to step back onto the stage to mop, Every creak of the floorboard sounded like footsteps right behind me. I decided to do one last sweep with my flashlight, just to prove to myself that I was alone. I shined the light out over the sea of seats, and there, in the balcony, I swear I saw someone sitting, a dark figure, perfectly still, like a statue. In one of the chairs, I blinked, trying to clear my eyes, and when I looked again, it was gone. I told myself it was a chair. A weirdly shaped chair, or a trick of the light. Anything that made sense, but then the whisper came again, and Tis time it. It was crystal clear, it sighed my name, and it was right behind me. I spun around so fast I dropped the flashlight. It clattered across the stage floor, the beam spinning wildly over the curtains, the ropes, the empty space where a voice had just been. No one was there, but I knew what I heard. I knew it. And then the footsteps started again, directly above me, on the catwalks high up in the ceiling. Pacing, slow, deliberate, back and forth. That was it for me. Primera, ra, ene. I didn't even look back. I just threw open the side door and bolted out into the freezing night air, gasping for breath. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely get the key in the lock to lock it behind me. And even when I was standing outside, under the relative safety of a street lamp, I could still hear them, those faint, echoing footsteps from inside the auditorium, slowly fading away. The next morning, I tried to tell another custodian what happened. He just laughed and said the old building settles at night. But a few weeks later, I was talking to one of the older teachers, and I found out the truth. Years ago, a beloved drama teacher had a fatal heart attack in that very auditorium. He died right there on stage, during a late-night rehearsal, and they sighed. They said people still hear him sometimes, walking the stage at night, whispering from the seats he used to sit in. I tried to tell myself it was just a story, just the buildings, pipes, just my imagination running wild in a creepy old place. But the way that voice said my name, the way those footsteps seemed to follow me, I'll never forget it. I quit that job not long after that night, but every now and then, when I drive past that old school, I can still feel it, that cold, heavy pressure in the air, like someone's still in there, watching and waiting. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've had a creepy experience you can't explain, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if you like spooky stories like this one, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Stay safe out there.